The sun was a merciless, molten coin in the sky the day the war began. Its light didn't just fall on Lake Serenity, it danced and fractured into a million blinding shards on the water's surface. My 32-foot cabin cruiser, the Second Chance, bobbed gently at the end of my private dock, a majestic beast of gleaming white fiberglass and polished teak. It wasn't just a boat, it was the culmination of a lifetime of saving, a sanctuary I'd built after my divorce, a floating promise of peace. To me, it was perfect. To Karen Pembroke, it was a declaration of war. I was inside, the air conditioning battling the July heat, when I heard the abrasive, rhythmic beeping. Peering through the blinds, I saw the grotesque sight. A massive tow truck, painted a garish yellow, was attempting to maneuver its way down the cul-de-sac toward my property. And striding alongside it, clipboard clutched like a scepter, sunglasses perched atop a severe blonde bob, was Karen. Karen Pembroke was the undisputed sovereign of the Whispering Pines Homeowners Association. She didn't just enforce the rules, she seemed to genetically engineer new ones in a secret lab beneath her perfectly manicured, pesticide-green lawn. Her uniform was pastel polo shirts and khaki capris, her expression a permanent blend of suspicion and sour disapproval. She'd always viewed my property, the largest and only one with direct, deeded lake access, as a personal affront to the community's aesthetic cohesion. I was out the door before the tow truck driver could kill his engine. "Can I help you?" My voice was calm, a stark contrast to the mechanical grumbling. Karen offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Alden. Finally. We've left several notices." "Notices about what?" She gestured with her clipboard toward the Second Chance. Article 7, Section 4, Subsection B of the Whispering Pines HOA Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions clearly states that no watercraft exceeding 24 feet in length may be moored at community-adjacent properties for a period exceeding 48 consecutive hours. Your vessel is in clear violation. I crossed my arms. "Karen, my property is not community-adjacent. It is the community. More importantly, this dock and the riparian rights are deeded exclusively to this lot. The HOA has zero jurisdiction over my dock or what I put on it." Her smile tightened. "The Architectural Committee disagrees. The visual pollution from an oversized boat affects everyone's property values. We've voted. You and your committee can vote to declare the sky polka-dotted. Doesn't make it law. This is private property. Now, I'd appreciate it if you and your truck would leave before you tear up my sprinkler heads." The driver, a burly man named Dave with a kind, apologetic face, leaned out. "Lady, he's got a point. This is his land. I can't tow from private property without a sheriff's order." Karen's cheeks flushed. "The violation stands, Mr. Alden. Consider this your final warning. Comply, or there will be consequences." She spun on her heel, her crisp footsteps echoing her indignation. Dave gave me a shrug and backed his truck out, leaving me with a thundering heart and a cold fury settling in my gut. The consequences arrived swiftly. First, a fine of $500, delivered by certified mail. Then, a lien threat against my property for non-compliance. My lawyer, a gruff old salt named Marvin who specialized in property law, laughed when I showed him the paperwork. "They're fishing, Alex. Their CC and RS explicitly exempt deeded water access and improvements." She's bluffing. But Karen didn't bluff. She escalated. She began organizing Lakeview preservation meetings. She circulated a petition among the newer residents, those who lived in the houses farther back with only a sliver of Lakeview between my and my immediate neighbors' properties. Her argument was clever and emotional: his giant boat blocks your vista. It's a safety hazard. The noise. The wildlife disruption. She painted me as the greedy, selfish outlier, ruining the paradise for 50 other families. My neighbors, the Millers and the Garcias, were on my side. We'd been there for decades, before the HOA metastasized from a voluntary maintenance group into Karen's personal fiefdom. "She's just jealous, Alex," old Tom Miller would say, sipping his lemonade on my porch. "Her husband's little pontoon boat looks like a bathtub toy next to the Second Chance." Then came the fateful Saturday. I'd invited a few friends for an afternoon cruise. As we were loading coolers, we heard the distinct, unwelcome buzz of several small outboards. Rounding the point came a flotilla, 7 or 8 boats, led by Karen in a pristine, flag-bedecked pontoon. They moved in a slow, deliberate parade, passing directly in front of my property. Karen stood at the helm, a megaphone in her hand. "Attention, shoreline resident," her amplified, tinny voice screeched across the water, scattering birds. This is a peaceful demonstration by the Whispering Pines Boating and Leisure Club. We protest the obstruction of shared views and the disregard for community standards. Shame. Shame. My friends stared, open-mouthed. My face burned. The Boating and Leisure Club was a fiction, a shell organization Karen had created a month prior, consisting of herself, her husband, and a handful of her sycophants. They'd now weaponized their mediocrity. I said nothing that day. I just watched them complete their pathetic loop and putter away, a smug satisfaction evident on Karen's face even from 100 yards. But in that moment of humiliated silence, the seed of a plan took root. It was a radical, nuclear option I'd never seriously considered. But Karen had just declared total war on my peace. It was time to reveal the true battlefield. The following Monday, I didn't go to the office. I went to my bank's vault, then to Marvin the lawyer's office with a heavy, sealed tube. I spread the contents on his mahogany desk, the original 1952 plat maps for the Lake Serenity development, the warranty deed for my property, and a single, typewritten page from 1953 that few people knew existed. "You're sure about this, Alex?" Marvin asked, his spectacles perched low on his nose. "This is the scorched earth play. She tried to tow my boat, Marvin. She's mobilizing a mob against me. She's using the lake as her stage. Time to change the set." He nodded slowly, a predatory grin spreading. "Okay then. Let's go to war." The first salvo was a cease and desist letter, delivered by Marvin to the HOA board and each member of the Boating and Leisure Club. It was densely worded and brutal. It cited the property deeds, the exempted riparian rights, and demanded an immediate retraction of all fines and liens, plus a formal, written apology. It also contained a single, ominous paragraph: "Furthermore, be advised that any unauthorized use of the littoral waters abutting our client's deeded property constitutes trespass. Our client reserves all rights to enforce his property boundaries to the fullest extent of the law." Karen's response was a masterpiece of arrogant dismissal. The HOA's lawyer, a young man who clearly feared Karen more than the law, sent back a letter reiterating their legal standing and accusing me of intimidation. They ignored the trespass warning entirely. Phase 2 began with a series of deliveries. First, to my property line where it met the lake at both ends, a surveying crew arrived. They drove new, permanent steel stakes topped with bright orange caps, marked Alden Property. Then, floating in the water exactly along the property line extension, they installed two sleek, solar-powered navigational buoys, blinking a steady amber. They weren't ugly, but they were unmistakable. The message was clear: here there be dragons. The final delivery was the largest, a custom-made sign, crafted from solid cedar and polished brass. I installed it at the center of my shoreline, right next to the dock. It read: "Private property. No trespassing, no mooring, no access. Waters and shoreline are privately owned by Alden Lot 7. Violators will be prosecuted. By order, Alexander Alden." The reaction was immediate and volcanic. The neighborhood Facebook page, Karen's Digital Throne, exploded. Who does he think he is? He can't own the water. This is a community lake. Karen herself posted a long, fiery missive about shared resources and the common good, urging everyone to ignore this blatant act of aggression. But the document I had revealed to Marvin, and which he now formally filed with the county and served to the HOA, told a different story. When Lake Serenity was created by damming a creek in the 1950s, the original developer had deeded not just the land, but the water rights in the lakebed for a specific, pie-shaped section of the shoreline to the owner of what was now my lot. It was a quirky, ancient provision, likely a sweetener to sell the largest, most difficult plot. For years, it had been forgotten, an obscure footnote. I'd known about it when I bought the place, but had never enforced it, happy to share the view in the water. Until now. Karen, in her zeal, had awakened a sleeping giant. I didn't just own the dock. I owned the water in front of my property, out to the center of the lake's Old Creek Channel, a vast, prime swath. The Boating and Leisure Club decided to test the boundaries. The next weekend, they attempted their freedom cruise again. As Karen's pontoon led the pack into the Amber Buoyed zone, a deep, powerful horn blast echoed across the lake. It came from the Second Chance. I stood on the flybridge, a marine-grade loudhailer in my hand. My voice, amplified and calm, rolled over the water. "Attention vessels. You are entering private waters. This is your only warning. Turn back now or you will be considered trespassing and the authorities will be contacted. You are on camera." I gestured to the two high-resolution, weatherproof cameras now mounted on my dock posts, their little red lights glowing. The flotilla hesitated, milling in confusion. I saw Karen arguing with someone on her pontoon, jabbing a finger toward my house. But the sight of the cameras, the buoys, and the sheer, uncompromising authority in my voice worked. One by one, the boats turned around. Only Karen remained, frozen in a standoff for a full minute, her figure rigid with fury, before she too whipped her pontoon around in a choppy, angry arc. The victory was temporary. I knew Karen. She would not surrender. She would seek a new weapon. And she found one in bureaucracy. The county inspector arrived on a Tuesday. Karen had filed a complaint alleging unsafe and unauthorized shoreline modifications and illegal obstruction of public waters. A weary-looking man in a county windbreaker examined my buoys, my sign, and my surveyor's report. He took pictures, made notes, and asked for my documentation. I provided copies of everything. This is a new one on me, he admitted, scratching his head. Usually it's about septic tanks. This deed, it seems legit. But the private water thing. I'll have to run this by the county attorney. There might be navigability easements. Please do, I said. In the meantime, the buoys stay. They're marking a property boundary, not obstructing navigation. He left, non-committal. The uncertainty was Karen's oxygen. She spread rumors that the county was going to force me to remove everything and fine me thousands. The pressure mounted. Then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, the local historical society. An elderly volunteer, upon hearing about the lake feud, dug into their archives and found a treasure, a faded photograph from 1954 showing the original owner of my lot, a wealthy industrialist, hosting a regatta. And there, in the background, was a sign almost identical to mine, proclaiming the waters private. It was historical precedent. Marvin pounced on it. It establishes continuous, acknowledged ownership. This is gold, Alex. He submitted it to the county. A week later, the inspector called. County attorney says it's a civil matter. We're not touching it. As long as your markers don't impede the main channel, you're in the clear. It was a monumental victory. Karen's bureaucratic assault had failed. Her power, which flowed from HOA rules and social pressure, was useless against actual, documented property law. I could see her simmering from across the water, her once unassailable authority crumbling. Then, she made her fatal mistake. It was the 4th of July weekend. The lake was buzzing with activity. I was on my dock, grilling, when I saw it. The Whispering Pines Boating and Leisure Club was having their annual patriotic cruise. They were all adorned with little American flags. And they were heading, with unmistakable intention, straight for my buoy line. Karen led, a look of defiant triumph on her face. She was going to force the issue, to cross the line en masse and dare me to do something. I didn't reach for the loud hailer. I picked up my phone and dialed the sheriff's office non-emergency line, which I already had on speed dial. Yes, I'd like to report a coordinated trespass on private property. At Lake Serenity. Yes, right now. Multiple vessels. I have live video footage to provide. I then activated an app on my phone. The cameras on my dock began recording, zooming in on each boat's registration number. They crossed the line. They hooped and cheered, a pathetic, rebellious chant rising from their group. Karen circled her pontoon slowly in my water, a conqueror. The celebration lasted about 4 minutes. Then, the sirens. 2 sheriff's patrol boats, summoned from the other side of the lake, came into view, lights flashing. The celebration died instantly, replaced by panic. The boats scattered, but it was too late. The deputies had my live feed. They easily corralled the flotilla, directing them to a public cove. I met the deputies there. I provided the video, crystal clear, showing every boat crossing the marked boundary. I handed over copies of my deed, the surveyor's report, and the historical photo. Karen was apoplectic. This is outrageous. We have a right to the lake. This is harassment. The lead deputy, a no-nonsense woman named Torres, was unmoved. Ma'am, the property documentation appears valid. You were warned, with clear signage and buoys. You knowingly entered private property. I'll be citing every single one of you for trespassing. The look on Karen's face was worth every penny, every moment of stress. It was a beautiful collage of shock, humiliation, and impotent rage. Her loyal followers glared at her, realizing they were facing fines because of her vendetta. Her coalition shattered on the spot. The following Monday, I enacted the final phase. I had Marvin send one more letter to each member of the now-disgraced Boating and Leisure Club. It was brief and to the point. Due to the willful and repeated trespass upon the privately owned waters of Alexander Alden, and the failure to respect clearly marked boundaries, you are hereby notified that you are individually and collectively prohibited from entering the waters defined as belonging to Alden Lot 7, in perpetuity. This ban is permanent and non-negotiable. Any future violation will result in immediate civil legal action for damages, in addition to criminal prosecution. I didn't just ban them from my lake. I made it official, legal, and humiliatingly public. The fallout was exquisite. The trespassing fines were minor, but the social cost was catastrophic for Karen. She was voted off the HOA board at the next emergency meeting by a landslide, even her former allies abandoning her. The Boating and Leisure Club dissolved, its members too embarrassed to show their faces on the water for the rest of the summer. Peace returned to Lake Serenity. The Second Chance sat proudly at her dock, unmolested. My neighbors, the Millers and Garcias, were given explicit, written permission to enjoy my waters anytime, a gesture of gratitude for their support. Their grandkids learned to water ski there. Karen became a ghost. She sold her house by the end of the year, the for sale sign seeming to wilt in her front yard. Rumor had it they moved to a condominium complex with a very strict, very comprehensive HOA. I hope she found happiness there. As for me, I sit on the deck of the Second Chance as the sun sets, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The water is calm, a mirror for the dying light. The amber buoys blink their gentle, rhythmic warning. They're not markers of exclusion, I've come to realize. They are monuments to a simple, forgotten principle, that sometimes you have to fight for what's yours. And that no amount of clipboard authority can trump a deed, a history, and the will to defend your own slice of paradise. I never wanted to be a king of a tiny aquatic kingdom. But when a HOA Karen tried to tow my too big boat, she left me with no other choice. And in the end, the view from my throne, with the gentle lap of water against the hull and the unbroken serenity of my own lake, is absolutely perfect.